Welcome back to Beyond Belief. I'm your host, Tyler Redman. Let's get started. Oh my gosh, guys, I am so excited to be back here on yet another Friday. I hope you have been having a phenomenal week. I don't know about you, but everything going on for me in my life and my job and where I'm going, everything is about training. Whether it's at church, we're training to be in the combat zone, or at work, we're literally training new employees who are stepping into my team. Um, Also at church, we're training new people to be on in the areas that I serve in. It's all about training. And I have to ask you, what's going on in your life right now? Put it in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Are you in a season of training? Because training tends to mean there is growth coming, and who doesn't love to grow? Right? Being able to train others around you means that you have potential to grow up as well, right? Because you're training someone to do what you do, which, yeah, let's be honest, we've all heard it. Your job will make you train your replacement. Well, yeah, you know what? Sometimes they will. But also, sometimes they allow an opportunity to train others around you who have potential so that you can then level up, if you will, into your next position. And I think that's the season I am in. We are training in order to level up in every area of my life. And I am so excited for it, guys. Oh my gosh. And last week we talked about goals. We talked about what we wanted to do, and by we, obviously, I mean me. Um, our my outlook for the podcast, where we want to go, and I'm still working on it. I took half of Saturday, and I set goals, and I had these personal goals that I'm gonna be working on, which is great. Like, it feels so good to have something set in stone that it's like, this is what you're striving for, Tyler. This is where we're headed. This is where we want to go. And then I took the time to ask myself why. Why is it that I want to, for example, lose weight? One of my goals is to lose a certain amount of weight by the end of the year, and I had to ask myself, why, Tyler? Why do you want to lose weight? And being healthy obviously is a simple option, and it's true. I do want to be healthy, but I want to be able to do the things that I want to do. And if you've never been overweight, you might not necessarily understand what I mean by that. What do you mean, do the things you want to be able to do? Well, for some people, you know what? Going to a park and getting on roller coasters and rides and that thing, you can't do that after you get to a certain size. For me, it's not so much that it's some of it's the clothes. I want to be even better dressed and look nicer. And there's certain limitations once you get so large that holds you back. And so that's one of the areas I want to grow and in this case shrink so that I can grow in those areas. But also I find that my spirit for God can outpraise my flesh. And unfortunately, what that means is sometimes on those deeper levels that you want to go with the Lord, I'm limited, and we're all limited uh, in that matter. But I'm limited by this flesh, and the ways in which we're all limited is obviously going to differ. In me, I'm overweight, severely overweight, and I admit that. And just this last Sunday, I felt it. I felt the move of the Spirit, and I felt the move of God, and I was ready, and my spirit was ready to go even further. And then there's that feeling in your body where it's like, I can't push through. And it's not the like the runner's block, right? Uh or runner's wall, I think it is, where there you have to push through to get through. No, 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 no. There comes a point to where physically you literally can't keep pushing yourself beyond that point. And I have no one to blame but myself. I have no one to blame but myself. And so that's one of my largest goals. I'm working on getting back at it. Many of you probably don't know. I lost about 40 or 50 pounds last year. I was doing really, really good. And then what did I do? I got off of all the things that I was doing to lose the weight. And unfortunately, we're in that situation where I've gained the weight back. And that's one of those things that really just sucks. I mean, there's no other way to say it. It sucks. It is not fun. But there's something different. There's something new in my life. There's something new coming around, and I can't even pinpoint what it is, but I there's something new in me. And so I'm really going to be focusing on that. Hopefully, maybe you don't notice this episode and maybe you don't notice the next, but maybe the next 10 episodes is like, man, Tyler, you look great. You don't even look like the same person. That would be awesome. And if I don't, that's okay too. One of the things I've learned in life is that failure isn't necessarily the setback that so many of us think. In fact, if anything, failure is truly a building block to success. Some of the greatest success in the world were built upon the failures that it took to get there, but you have to keep going after you fail. And that's what is different between winners and losers. A winner, even when they lose, they build upon that loss to get better, versus someone who has kind of a spirit of losing. What they're doing is, when they fail, they fall into despair and they say, "Oh, I can't do it. Once again, I fell short. Once again, I can't be more than this." And literally, the words from their mouth, they're prophesying over themselves and they're speaking over their life all this ill. And so that's not how I want to live my life anymore. And so again, that's one of my goals, and I don't have all my goals for the podcast set yet, but I know I have clearer vision of where we want to go. Um, I mentioned it last time. I want to be more active on social media. But that being said, I don't want it just to be more active on the Beyond Belief podcast. I want to be more active in my own personal social media as well. Daily content, it doesn't have to be a podcast episode, but there's so much going on in life that I want to share with you all. Um, One of the things holding me back is my phone. My front camera is well, the front screen, let's be honest, is popping out of the phone. Which, to be fair, I've had the same iPhone for 6 or 7 years now, I believe. So it's I, I've gotten a good run out of this phone, is what I'm trying to say here. But again, it's holding me back not being able to have a front camera I can use. And so one of my next goals is being able to have the correct devices in my life so that I can go ahead and get out there. Um, Another thing, I'm really big on budgeting right now. I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in a life of being in debt. But it's not for me. I want to be financially free, and so I'm and this is rare for someone of my age, but I'm focusing heavily on my student loans and other payments that I have to get those all squared away. I don't want to be 50 or 60 and looking back and still being held back by my student loans or poor life choices. So that's what I'm really focusing on heavily, and I can't wait to go on that journey and be able to never lack. And that goal's not just a goal that I have for just worldly things. One of the things that has been really heavy on my heart lately is, once again, if I get a feeling or a pull that I am to give in a service, or just to a random stranger or whatever it may be, I want to always be able to give. And so I, like many others, have found myself right now, I'm not in that position. If there are certain limits I can't exceed, but I can already see the vision. So I can vision myself giving these offerings, and I can vision myself giving these gifts and these encouragements, but where I am physically today isn't there. So if the vision's there already, I'm now taking the actions to move myself to where they're not just visions anymore, they're reality. And so, again, that's another thing. There's guys, I gotta tell you, I've been doing so much for self-reflection, and it's so healthy. I mean, I called last episode a mid-year reset, and it is so extremely healthy to take that time and reset and think about you. When's the last time you just sat down and think about yourself? We're so busy in this life doing things for others, whether it be family or friends or your job or even your church, and you're giving and you're giving and you're pouring and you're pouring, but you have to make sure that there's still something in your tank, something in your well. An empty cup can't pour. It's that simple. I mean, an empty cup can't pour. So what are you doing to maintain a full cup? And so even myself, that's why I had to set these goals. We're focusing on my physical life, my financial life, my spiritual life, and also like my social relationship life, you know, because you have to have all of those. You do. It's just the truth. You have to be in good physical health. Your health is important. It's going to limit you from other areas of life. Your spiritual life. You need that time with God. You need that relationship building. You need that deepness. It it unlocks that next level, that extra growth in you. It can take you further than any other method in the world. And then financial. Everyone knows money isn't the world system. The world operates on money. And you gotta have a little bit of money to operate in the world. But you can't let money operate you. And so you have to get that correct and get that in order. And then your relationships, whether that's friendships, whether that's love, whether if you're married or you have children, it all matters. There's all different things that you need to be doing. You need to be engaged. I was listening to the Mel Robbins podcast just recently, and she was talking about three things that she's been able to go ahead and gather from the 50 plus doctors that she's had on her podcast. And of those three things that you need to be healthy, your relationships are one of the three. You need that social life. Whether you're an introvert or extrovert, the reality is you need other people. It is good for the soul. Even in the Bible, it says it's not good for man to be alone. So you can't just isolate yourself all the time. So, and before you feel attacked, sometimes we need that alone time. Sometimes we need to step away. I'm all for it. when I get home from work, I like to take a good 15 or so minutes, and it's just me. Like, I don't have anyone around me, doors closed, like, no one has access to me. And what that does is it gives time for me to breathe after all that I've had that day. Right? It's time to release it. It's time to separate your work life from your home life, your work life from your church life, whatever it may be. And so you have to utilize things like that, but that's supposed to be a small portion to reconnect into your next thing. That's not an isolation that's meant to completely pull you away. And that being said, sometimes there's things in life, the way you're growing, the way your life is growing, that you do need isolation. Because just as you need those relationships in your life, sometimes they're a distraction. And if you're so extroverted that you constantly need to be around others, that can be your own distraction that's preventing your growth in other areas of life. And so, what does that tell us? That tells us that it's all about a balance. Just like me and this weight loss journey, it's all about a balance. Right? If I'm constantly overeating and I'm not moving my body and I'm not getting enough water, I'm out of balance. So of course I'm going to gain weight. Of course the weight's not going to come off. Vice versa. If I'm not eating anything and I'm not drinking anything and there's absolutely nothing going on, that's still out of balance. And yes, I might lose the weight, but I might also be suffering. So there's a balance. And it's the same with the relationships. There's a balance between the times you need to be alone and the times you're with others. There's times, a balance between an isolation session and isolation time alone versus an isolation season. That it's all about balance. Even your relationship with God is about balance. You know, if you're constantly, your relationship with him is you being in prayer and constantly just crying and complaining about the your life in general, uh, you're at an impasse. You know, there's a limited amount of growth there because you're only getting a small portion. You know, it makes me think of the quote of the Bible, and this is from a certain translation, but Jesus is with Mary and Martha, and Martha's complaining about Mary because she's at the feet of Jesus, you know, crying and worship and praise. And Jesus tells Martha after she's done complaining, Martha, Martha, Mary has chosen the greater portion. And so, what does that tell us? That means that sometimes those things that we want to focus on are the smaller portion, right? Sometimes that making sure everything is set in place and just right is a smaller portion versus actually executing it, versus worshiping the Lord, versus that deep intercession prayer. And you can keep going on and on. And, you know, again, I know this is a little surface level here and we need more time to drag that out. But that's, you can find that in every area of life because again, it's all about balance. So are you balanced today? You know, that's a good question to ask yourself. If you haven't set goals from last week's episode, go ahead and set goals today and make sure you're being balanced. You can't be shooting for the moon when you still don't know how to walk. You have to have the goal to walk, and then you can also have the goal to shoot for the moon. But you have to have those building blocks, and you have to have balance. The same with your weight loss. You know, if you are like me and you are extremely overweight, and you've not ever tried to tackle it, it is not an easy thing. It's easy to talk about, but it's not easy to live through. You have to start with the small goals. So maybe instead of having the big goal of, I want to lose 100 pounds, you have the goal of, I want to drink more water. And then after that goal's done, I want to eat healthier. After that goal's done, then I want to lose 25 pounds. I want to lose 50. I want to lose 100. You continue to build on those successes. And if you fall short, and you will, that's 100% okay, because you can see, okay, I failed. Let's take some time to self reflect. What happened? Was I just being lazy? Was it um, stress in life? Was there something that triggered it? And on that self reflection, you can build upon that failure so that you can take actions to succeed. And if you don't know the right actions, that's when you need to look out and ask friends. And if you don't have friends that are going through what you've been through, you have so many resources at your hand of people and testimonies of and I'm heavy on the weight loss right now, but no matter what you're in, there's so many different ways you can connect to others that have been through what you're going through. And while no one's been through it the way you're going through it exactly, because no one can be you, someone's been through something that's similar enough that he can help guide you. And so, guys, I'm going to go ahead and leave that episode here today. I had to get to my church. We have this super awesome back to school event that's going on. And so I have to go help pack some backpacks full of school supplies for all the children that are showing up here in the local Springfield area. I will see you guys next week. I can't wait to hear from you more. That's all, guys. You have a good one.